Hi class, today's lecture will be going over exploring evidence-based programs. In particular, we will be looking at resiliency approaches and youth development models. So what are evidence-based programs when it comes to substance abuse prevention? When selecting a prevention program, you want to make sure you're selecting a program that is based on the best data available and has been found to effectively reduce substance use and abuse. It usually needs to be on a federal registry for evidence-based interventions or programs. It should produce a positive impact on your target outcome, be peer-reviewed in a journal. It needs to show documentation of effectiveness based on theory of change. It needs to have similar content and structure to other evidence-based interventions, and it's been supported by data multiple times, reviewed and approved by a panel of prevention experts. Here at this link, you can go to samhsa.gov's evidence-based programs and practices. Here you'll be able to see all of the different types of prevention programs based on certain approaches that are all found to be evidence-based. There are also certain components that make a program evidence-based. These are based on previous data and research. One component of evidence-based programs is the structure of the prevention program. This consists of the program type, which are things like whether it's a program in the school or it's family-based. These two specifically have been shown to be highly effective in preventing drug abuse. Media and computer technology programs are beginning to show effectiveness as well. Programs also need to be designed to be more effective by targeting a specific audience. For example, maybe your program targets specifically high-risk girls. Setting is in relation to a program being designed to be implemented for the target audience's primary setting. There are more and more programs that are being targeted outside of the primary setting, like family-based programs being held in their school, or programs that focus on multiple components or program types have a better chance of reaching their intended outcomes. For example, combining 2 or more effective programs has proved to be more effective than just one single program. The specific content of the program varies, but to be more effective, it needs to be designed to reduce risks and strengthen protective factors. It should include information about drugs and the effects and their laws. However, this alone is not shown to be effective. You need to use more than one you need to use this in combination with another prevention intervention. It needs to have training to build skills, which is also effective, like communication or conflict resolution skills. Some prevention programs target structural change, like making change of a law or a policy in order to promote or reduce substance use. Then there's service programs that might include adding counseling or healthcare to disadvantaged populations. The delivery of the program is also important and might include the following: the selection of or adaptation of a program. Communities might take an effective evidence-based research program and adapt it to their community's needs in order to make it the right fit. The program's core elements stay the same, but you adapt the program in order to fit your community's needs. Implementation refers to how it is delivered to the community. Examples would be, is there a specific number of sessions? Will there be a program follow-up? This is very key to a program's effectiveness. The last two components of an evidence-based programs are prevention programs that include having influential adults play a role in how youths understand and use drugs. So incorporating positive adults in their lives. Then there is early intervention. We know that the earlier that someone uses drugs and alcohol, the more likely it is to become a problem. So intervening as early as possible gives them the best chance to prevent addiction or substance use disorders from occurring. Before I go into some of the evidence-based programs, I want to talk about a traditional model that has been used in the past. This is the common way that families, communities, schools typically deal with youth, and through the lens that we call a damage model, which has been found to not be effective to reduce substance use disorders. The damage model adheres to the idea that children can be harmed by a singular influence from their parents, and that because of this, children from troubled families are more passive, vulnerable, and locked into the family system. There is a lot of research to back up the damage model with negative intergenerational patterns that are often passed from one generation to another. In this model, the only solution for a child is to cope. However, over time, the children's attempts to cope take a toll on them, and they eventually become troubled adults like their parents. The problem with the damage model is it doesn't take into consideration that those children and adolescents develop resiliency factors despite their environment. The damage model provides a weak foundation for the work of helping professionals, leaving them little reason for hope or optimism. It tends to actually oversimplify human psychology. Humans are individuals and often do not follow along one theory of behavior. So the damage model focuses on problems and deficits and often excludes the client's strengths. So research has moved more from the damage model to a resiliency approach. In a way to combat those deficits, we focus on resiliency, then we increase those protective factors that buffer the risk factors. So resiliency are skills and tools that help us bounce back from adversity. It incorporates two concepts. One, that there's an exposure to significant stressors or risks, and two, that they're able to demonstrate competence and successful adaptation to these stressors. It's a process rather than a fixed characteristic. Resiliency could be built on more than just the individual level. For example, at the family level, an example would be to prevent transmission of alcoholism by protecting specific family rituals that can often be ruined by the family member's alcoholism. At the community level, an example would be people who are able to recover from a mass school shooting. These are different severity levels of risk, but some people, families, and communities are not able to bounce back from these types of stressors. So it is found that there are specific individuals, families, and communities that have resiliency factors built in them. The ultimate idea of a resiliency approach is to promote the development of strengths and assets within a person. So if and when they are faced with challenges, they can cope successfully with it. While some researchers have referred to this process as resilience, the model is typically now called the positive youth development. The positive youth development model is an example of an evidence-based prevention program. Now, there are different programs that adhere to a positive youth development model. Here are some of the core components of what a positive youth development model should adhere to. The important thing to remember is that this type of approach has been shown to have effectiveness in reducing problematic use and addiction. Here is why we should focus on more of a positive youth development model in our prevention programs. Because many adults inherently mistrust youth, they can often blame youth for their problems in society, including the violence, and believe that young people are disinterested in real problems or are irresponsible and dangerous. For some young people, this mentality contributes to low self-worth, hopelessness about the future, and disconnection to adult figures. It also can lend to personal experiences of discrimination, poverty, and racism. It exposes the family and community to violence and social isolation and a lack of positive adult relationships. It also fuels a perception of limited life opportunities, a sense of fatalism, an exaggerated need for status and power, and frustration and anger with the adult world. young people actually have important insights, and their ideas are invaluable assets to families, organizations, and communities. Yet often their characteristics are overlooked, especially when we determine that the damage model does not fit with every youth. It does not explain how members who come from damaged homes are able to become resilient and provide something to families and communities that are not able to. The youth development model focuses on strengthening the capacity of young people to successfully navigate the stages of adolescence. The underlying premise is based on the belief that youth are valued and can contribute to families, schools, and communities. It emphasizes not only providing services, but offering a network of opportunities to engage youth to get active and involved, as well as it supports them in developing a sense of competence, usefulness, and belonging and power in the community. The idea of the PYD model is that we look at resiliency and in youth and their protective factors and how these factors influence one's ability to bounce back from adversity. Some of the developmental model outcomes anticipated by the youth development model include research that shows that youth who have certain protective factors experience more positive outcomes. In turn, young people who are given opportunities for positive encounters engage in less risky behaviors and show higher rates of successful transition to adulthood. They are able to develop a positive sense of self, a sense of connection and commitment to others, the ability and motivation to succeed in school and participate in family and community life. The 5 C's is a framework for understanding the positive youth developmental model. There's connection, that feeling of safety and structure in their families and communities, confidence, a sense of self-worth, character, taking responsibility and a sense of independence, caring, showing sympathy and empathy for others, contribution, active engagement in their community, competence, the ability to effectively navigate school and social interactions. Here are some of the key philosophical elements of the positive youth developmental model. We assume that adolescence is a turning point in the overall life developmental process. It is an opportunity for communities to support young people in positive directions. Adolescent development is natural, evolving, and complex. Youth development occurs in the context of family, community, and our country. Young people's maturation process is influenced by their surroundings and affected by the relationships of key people, such as parents, teachers, and peers. The youth developmental approach includes services, opportunities, and support for all young people. Young people's development is supported through involvement with other people or places that offer intellectual, spiritual, and emotional nurturing. Young people can and should take charge of their destiny through learned decision making and enhanced understanding of their choices available to them. They should also be provided with support necessary to deal with the consequences for those choices. Some more philosophical elements of this model include that even adults struggle in some developmental areas of their life. Every individual has different skills and abilities and matures at different paces. Not all young people start at the same place developmentally because of economic circumstances, family problems, or just personal differences. Therefore, developmental activities should be tailored to meet the needs of young people who are in disadvantaged circumstances so that they receive the resources necessary to address the limitations of their life circumstances. Youth development is dependent on family and community development. So in order to implement the positive youth developmental model, one of the greatest challenges is facing a shift in the perspectives of the community members, schools, volunteers, staffs, and board members, and then youths themselves. It requires rethinking some basic cultural assumptions and how to create supportive environments. It emphasizes cooperation instead of competition, coordination instead of fragmentation, and funding that supports the redevelopment of entire communities instead of a specific focused program. The theory of change should be that the leaders in the community, we change the way that we do business in the community. The family communities and schools or the support systems, we change the landscape of their communities. The children and youth themselves are the outcomes. We change the odds for children and youth in our community. Some of the key elements of the positive youth development model include that each community needs to be prepared to design specific programs that meet the needs and build the inherent strengths and resources in their youth. Youth development is not successfully accomplished by just one program or agency acting alone. It needs the entire community. It requires organizational and community collaboration to ensure that the system reflects the fundamental philosophy of valuing and supporting our young people. We need to provide our youth with a safe and supportive environment, foster relationships between young people and the caring adults in their lives, provide youth with opportunities to identify and pursue interests, focusing specifically on their strengths, and support the development of youth knowledge and skills in a variety of ways, including study, tutoring, sports, vocational education. We want to provide opportunities for youth to show that they care about other people and about their society in general. We aim to promote healthy lifestyles and teach positive patterns of social interaction. The ability to provide a safety net in times of need for the youth. Lastly, I want to show you some ways that you can search for specific types of positive youth development programs. Blueprints is a specific program selector website that supports the adherence of the positive youth development model. You can find evidence-based programs specifically for this approach in an array of areas, including violence, pregnancy, substance use, and more. For example, I just searched for substance use disorders programs, and these are all the programs that I found. It's able to tell you their rating, the benefits versus and costs of the program, and their specific aimed impacts towards the community. And again, if you're in a specific community, you can take this program, but also you might need to adapt it in order to meet your community's needs.